Okay, good morning. My mistake. I was talking to myself for the last 5 minutes because I don't know what I'm doing. So, I'm going to start that over. It's the first time I've really scheduled a pre market prep without just doing it impromptu in the system. I learn something new every day. So, let me just start back at the beginning. It's my mistake. Apologies. Like I said, learn something new every day. Thought I was live, was not live. Am officially live now. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, CNSP is probably up on everybody's scanners. This was a huge runner from Friday that has continued to run higher. And again, I'm starting back at the beginning. Like I said, I talked for 5 minutes to myself because I didn't realize I wasn't live. Technology's hard. But anyway, CNSP, first one, everybody's scanners, everybody's watching. It, this thing's crazy. Basically, what I was saying is we had talked about it on Sunday, having a nice retest after open of 4. Obviously, we have far surpassed that. This thing is wild. Sub-mill float, especially after all the IOs. It does have some warrants and S3s that are open, dilution machine, but it's not something I want to be early on. It's not something I'm even going to touch in pre-market. It is definitely something I'm going to wait until open and see how it does. Ultimately, I'm going to wait because this thing's up from sub-dollar. This thing is up massive from where it started. So there is still tons of room and opportunity. What I would like to see it open, the 450 to 5 level. Let me go here. Yeah, see, in the pre-market volume areas, it's just so thin on volume, especially at those upper levels. 450 to 5, depending on how it opens and where VWAP sits, are my first levels of interest. I'm not good, nor am I one to short weakness, so it's not something I would necessarily want to hit on the way down. It's never really been my style, and especially with something sub-mill float, it just not something that interests me. So we'll see how it opens. Still plenty of time, but I would like it to at least pop back up to VWAP. A lot of my trades I do 2 in, but with this sub-mill float and the volatility that this thing has shown, this might be something I take 3 shots to full size into, but we'll just have to see how it acts at open. If it keeps getting weaker into open, in my opinion, I always think VWAP becomes a little bit stronger, big psychological level if it opens weak. So VWAP 455, we'll see how it acts in that area there. Beyond that, patience, because this thing is absolutely wild. So the next one that we talked about on Sunday, before I get into any day ones, was INPX. This one's kind of already disappointed. What we had talked about on Sunday, at least me and Sellers, a couple other people, was we wanted $1 to $1.20 push, ideally at open. It did it at pretty much 3:30 in the morning. So, not a big fan of that. I doubt we see that again after open. We'll see what happens. If it opens super weak, VWAP 90, we'll see how it acts in those areas. But I lost a little bit of interest in it. Still up from 30, so it still has a fair amount of room in range. But when it gets this low in price and the volatility kind of drops, it just doesn't interest me quite as much, especially when I consider, and I don't know how much locates on it are yet. I haven't even looked, but you're always talking about fees on the lower priced stocks. They add up just because of the amount of shares you need to acquire. So not as excited about this one anymore. It is at a pretty big level here. That 80 level has been support ever since really this initial run up a couple times over. So we'll see how it opens, see how it acts at those levels. But that 80 level has been pretty key. It is below it now, but it wouldn't take much at all for it to get back above that, especially after open. So the next day 2 that we talked about, SAI, fortunately, it's popped back up, which I like. On these day twos, I've always liked the prior day's VWAP and a whole dollar level to kind of be right there together. So 5 is very interesting. That's quite a ways to go for it to get to that point. We'll see how it opens. 455. I like that. Beyond that, it gets super thin. And if I go and look at the volume profile, I don't think there's much. Yeah, the 455, which huge there. If it ran beyond that, you start getting into some bags and chasers closer to the 6 level. It's a pretty big gap from 5 to 6 on a day 2 side. But we'll see what happens. Because I don't think the float on this was quite as low. It's low floater. It's not a sub mil or anything crazy, but less than 10 mil, so it could still run for sure. So this one, in my opinion, is a little more cut and dry. I'm just going to set alerts probably at 450 and 5. Won't even look at it until then. Day twos for me haven't been as great, so I tend to hold for outlier levels on the day 2 side of things. Last day 2 that I was going to talk about, which I swung some of this short from Friday. I already took it off like around 330 or 340, somewhere in that area, small size, just some leftover I swung. But 5 seems to be a big number with a couple of these. 5, again, depending on how it opens. But again, that's just for me day 2 because I like to wait for the outlier levels because I just haven't done as well with the day 2 side of things. So I've continued to wait for the outlier levels on the day 2s just because that has helped me with discipline, better risk reward. If this were a day 1, I like to, if it opens weak, hit the VWAP levels, but I haven't had success with it on the day 2 side. So anyway, day 2s aside, if we look at day 1s, we have some major runners. I want to reorganize. The big 4 as of right now are these. This is the big one, BLBX, then STSA, CFRX, and PRST. All big gappers, all up over 100 except PRST, which is up 85%, which is still huge. So BLBX, this is how I treat all day 1 gappers. I put them on my screen. First thing I do is plug them into the multi-time frame tab so I can see how it's, if there's any daily resistance, days with any volume. Of course, I look at gap stats, and right off the bat on this one, I am not particularly excited because the all-time high, it's not new per se, but the all-time high on this on the daily is 11. We've already plowed through 11 by $1, and it's right around it now. I'm just gonna have to wait till open. If 11 is any sort of resistance at open, cool. Only problem is 0 volume on the daily at 11. This thing is pretty much in no man's land. So when I see something like this, I really, it's hard to say I'm not going to play it, but I would really ideally like to wait for a lower high or a complete just blow off move. But this thing, let's see, it is, according to Trade Ideas, a sub 1 mil float. I always like to use Flash Sec for all that type of stuff. So their listed float is 1.2. If you add in insider ownership, the institutional ownership, all the IOs, sub a mil. So obviously very tricky. Let's see. Warrants exercised. It's got a little bit of paper left to dump, quote unquote, but not much. It's a wild one. Last thing I do is look at the news. The news is saying, looks like a merger of sorts. Blackbox announces letter of intent for merger with EvTech.
Interesting.
Blah, blah, blah. Merger. Positive news, too. Like, legitimate positive news. It's not some BS. Granted, I haven't read through it line by line. I haven't looked at the filings, if it even is a listed 8K as far as the news yet. But anyway, yeah, I mean, now this thing is strong. It's at all-time highs in pre-market. Just have to see how it opens. Blow off volume, maybe. Parabolic blow off volume move. Lower high. Those are the only two things that would interest me in the slightest. This thing today could potentially burn a lot of people. However, I say all these things, and it could just open and just die all day long. Isn't what I would anticipate. Also, gap stats aren't favorable. 20%, or gaps above 20% is 12. Close below open less than half of the time. But this is, like I said, uncharted territory per the daily. That's a tough one. What else do we got? STSA. See, this is a pattern that I do more so like. Granted, it's still early. We still got an hour before open. So a lot can change between now and then. But when I look at like STSA, it's only had two gaps. It's closed below open both times. So not the greatest when it comes to gap stats. But let's see, let me zoom in a little bit. It's not a great daily. Had this huge gap down. And I hadn't even filled the gap. I like to use gap fills as a level of resistance. So not a favorable daily. Okay, gap stats. However, I do like the pattern. These type of patterns when they spike. I mean, this thing's up currently 100%. It's up big. But on this, if it continues to get weak into open, I really do like VWAP as a level of resistance going into open. And this is where I like to use the volume profile as well. So yeah, huge volume in this area, also right around VWAP. So it's a nice level of confluence for me. I would take that. $180, $190. Maybe take it VWAP, add around to the $180, $190-ish level. Decent volume here. If it breaks above that, though, real thin. Of course, go higher, but it's up 100%. To get back up to that 230 level, it's got to go up another 100% almost. That's a lot to ask. But Monday, anything can happen. I think people are still going to be chasing this week super hard after what we saw last week with some of the moves. I think everybody's going to be hunting for that next big move. Rooms are going to be pumping this shit. Things could go higher. All I can do is put myself in the best risk reward positions. I'll win some, lose some. I lose all the time. I don't give a shit. I lose every day. Don't care. Statistically, I win more than I lose, but my winners are bigger than my losers. Lose all the time. Don't care. If I take this trade at this level and add it here and, risked and sized accordingly for like a 2 break and hold, cool. I lost. Whatever. Keep it moving. Don't care. But that, in my opinion, is a good risk reward. It's a lot to ask of the stock to break 2 and continue to push higher and hold. So we'll see what happens. Let me pull up CFRX. I didn't even look at the news on STSA. This is one of their partners offers buyout. Doesn't look like it's anything official. Whatever, let's look at CFRX. This news. Oh, don't do that. I hate when they do that. To post earnings, something about earnings. To post fiscal year 2023 earnings of $15.39 per share per Zacks small cap forecast. Totally believable. So I'm sure this is a nice pump job. Gap stats 3, close below open 100% of the time. Awesome. Zoom in here. Zoom in more. Daily. Yeah, daily suck. Hourly also kind of sucks. So when I see stuff like that, daily, hourly sucks. Like, it is what it is. You don't always get good stuff on the daily and the hourly. At that point, I'm just going to use the levels given on this run up. I like to go here. This is CFRX. See what it does going into open. Definitely want to see how VWAP acts here. It's already rejected it once, twice. This could be the third time. So definitely something I'd want to keep an eye on now and going into open. It's already shown some respect to it a couple times here. Let's see how it does here. But when I'm looking at the volume of it, it is so thin right up in that area. Yeah, literally nothing. $220. I don't know. We'll see how it opens, because now it's showing some strength. But I do like the 220 level, 220, 230. And you got 250, which is a nice whole level, and you got 3. Obviously, those are basic, but I just don't see any point in complicating that more than it should be. See how it does at VWAP, 220, 230, then you got 250 and 3. That's how I would look at those levels. But it is super thin above 250. So if it gets above 250, what's the float on this? Low floater. Decent IO percent, which makes the float even lower. Pretty much no cash. They're broke as shit. They got some active warrants. 332. So we do have some active warrants at the 332 level. Maybe they want to get it up to that. And again at 4. I don't know. We'll see. Low float, decent IO. They have paper, a lot of paper to dump. I mean, when you see stuff like this, like, you already know what's going to happen. They're going to run it up. They're going to dump it. We don't know when, but it's going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen in pre-market. Surely not. But dilution machine. It is a low floater with a decent IO. I would expect to see some games, as we're seeing, because it just said to hell with VWAP and let's just see what happens. So again, I don't trade much in pre-market. If I ever do, it is tiny size because I just don't like it. Plus, I'm getting kid ready. 250 and 3, I would see how it does it. But then again, after open, see how these volume levels solidify, see if it jumps above and starts to add any sort of real volume in these areas. But we'll see. The 1-200 has shown some respect, again, pre-market, but definitely going to be somewhat reactionary. Really do like that 250. This would be something I'd probably look to shoot to two-shot. 250, 280, break and hold a 3. Again, keep it simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things. If it breaks and holds over 3, I'd be out. At that point, I'd just wait. But, you know, when I get into these things, I like to do it in the first 30 minutes. And I like to see that blow off breakout volume come in the first 30 minutes. And then I like to see it just fade and die the rest of the day. If volume continues to come in, the R vol continues to go up, the volume continues to pour in, especially for me by 10. If that's continuing to happen, massive red flags. I don't like to see this number creep up going into 10 a.m. If I continue to see it go up into 10 a.m., that's where I tend to see stuff like CNSP or PTPI or those all-day grinders that after 10 a.m. I typically leave alone unless they just go completely parabolic. But that is just more my style. Keeps risk management in check. 90, I won't say 90. 80% of my trades come in the first hour of the day. Beyond that, it's pretty much parabolic moves only, or unless they just go even slightly sub-para into some major daily levels. That's just, again, my style of trading. I have a lot of setups that I take within the first hour of the day. Afternoon trading, don't do a lot. Like I said, unless it's a parabolic move or a even sub-para move into a major daily level. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. 250, 250, 280, probably be where I would look at it. If it breaks and hold threes complete, I'd be out and then just reevaluate. So we got action. We got day twos. We got day ones. I already outed the rest of my size on PTPI here. Didn't have much left. I think my average on the leftover was like 460 or 470 or something where I hit it here, hoping for just a bigger fade after hours, but I didn't get it. And fortunately, it kind of came pre-market, but I woke up at 3 a.m. for that. Anyway, BLBX, STSA, CFRX, all over 100%. I think our guy, Day Trading Zoo, has put out a lot of stuff on Twitter about gappers over 100%. Much better statistically odds of failing. But when you look at BLBX and CFRX, these two up top, they are both right around a mil float. I mean, BLBX, all-time highs. We'll see how it opens. Even if it opens weak, it's not something I would hit with any real size at VWAP. Maybe half at VWAP, half at 11, just because that's the all-time high. But this, and CFRX, same kind of thing, pretty low flow. So STSA, as of now going into open, is my favorite day one. I kind of hope, what I like to see is if BLBX and CFRX draws the attention of the chasers, and this kind of gets forgotten, has just a quick little pop, drop, fade the rest of the day. Of course, I never hold for all day fades. I usually lock in. If I ever see 15 or 20%, I'm locking in. Probably majority, I might leave a runner on, but wishful thinking that maybe STSA gets forgotten with BLBX and CFRX taking the spotlight. Plus, you still have CNSP. Especially if it spikes at all. I think those three get the attention, but it's still getting weak, which, like I've said, if it continues to get weak, I would put more emphasis for me personally on VWAP in that 5 level. But again, this thing said F all your levels on Friday. Said the same thing kind of after hours. Again, pre-market. So risk management would have to be numero uno with that VWAP 5 level, and I'd probably add at 550 and cut somewhere in this vicinity here before 6, because if this thing breaks 6 with its float, it could go bananas. As we've seen on some of these gaps, it just went crazy, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, there's not really any good daily levels to use. Pretty much already filled that at one point, and I don't know. We'll see what happens after open. Anyway, I don't want this to go any longer than it has to. Covered some of the day one gappers, covered some of the day two plays. I think I covered all the day twos, covered all the major day ones. There's more than that. I mean, you still got, just let me show this one. And sometimes plays like these offer an easy, headache-free trade, right? DFLI. It's still at 40%. It's probably going to get forgotten in all the hecticness. Pretty dry on volume, which I don't like. I wish it had more volume. It's only traded 500. I wish it had more volume than what it has now. However, huge spike. If it could pick up some volume and kiss this VWAP and just quietly fade the rest of the day, that could be like an easy 15-20% trade. That's pretty headache free. It's not a major day one gapper. These are the types that sometimes can offer some great opportunities. So it's something that I have on like my side watch. But these are the type of things too. I keep it again pretty simple, right? Like I'm gonna look for VWAP, which is also just around that 7 level. But we'll see. Sometimes the ones that are forgotten offer some of the easiest opportunities. And I think that thing is probably going to get forgotten with all the other day one craziness and the day two stuff still going on. I mean, PTPI even, if it spikes even a little bit, it's up from $1. It's trading at $3.50 right now. It could still draw a lot of attention. Anyway, all right, I'm going to cut it here because I got to get my kid ready. I got more pre-market prep to do myself. It is Monday. Hopefully, we can all start the day off on a good note. Week off on a good note, really. But yeah, let me get my kid ready. Finish pre-market prep. Sorry about the technical mishap in the beginning. I talked for like 5 minutes to myself because I didn't realize I was live. This was like really the first time I have scheduled a pre-market prep. So, yeah, technology is freaking tough. But anyway, Monday, fun day. Stay safe. A lot of opportunity. I'm sure the week will present plenty of opportunity with this current cycle. So anyway, appreciate y'all. Good luck. Peace.